Hello, welcome to the MuseScore Café for today, January 22nd, Wednesday, as usual, 2020, and this is the MuseScore Café. My name is Marc Sabatella, the Director of Education for MuseScore, and this is my weekly series of chats about making music with MuseScore. I'm having some technical issues, and I don't know exactly what's happening, but I'm not able to access the cafe. Oh, there we go. Nope, I am over here. Okay. Okay. Never mind. All right. Good. Um, okay. Excellent. Uh, so, as usual, I'm juggling a whole bunch of things while I'm doing this. We are imminently releasing MuseScore 3.4, and so if this thing is done downloading, I'm actually going to install it, and we'll be using it. There's nothing different than what I showed you a couple weeks ago, but I think maybe this is going to be the final version. That'll probably be pushed out in the next day or so. I'm guessing a little bit about that. But I'm going to go ahead and install it so we can be using it, and if anything goes wrong, then then we'll know. All right. So, yes. Okay. So, the topic that I was going to talk about today is vocal music, and so I'm going to tell you a little bit about um, uh, what prompted this. So usually there's some reason I pick a particular topic. So I've mentioned several times before and had as a guest the student Elizabeth, the blind student who was in my theory class last year, and uh, although I'm not directly teaching her at the moment, she is in some vocal ensembles and needs to get the music. And so they are contracting with me to enter music. So basically, they have printed music that everyone else is using, and we need to get this music into MuseScore so she can read it. Um, and so this is something that I do on an occasional basis, enter music. And so I figured I would, so let me switch over now to full screen mode, so you will be able to see MuseScore when it comes up, which hopefully it will momentarily. There we are. All right, this is MuseScore 3.4. It doesn't look particularly different. So what I'm going to do, good afternoon. It's morning for me, and I know it's evening for some of you. I know one person was talking about having to get up at 1:30 in the morning to see this. I think that's in China. Um, so we I have some music that I want to enter into MuseScore so that Elizabeth can read it, and it's vocal music, and so I want to talk about some of the issues that are involved in doing that. Before I actually start entering the music, though, I want to talk about, um, first of all, some alternatives. I was given a PDF. Um, this is the PDF. Um, it's a scanned of the actual printed music. Um, and the chances of me getting a reasonable trying to use the import PDF facility in MuseScore from that are slim to none. Oops, what did I do? Not what I meant to do is what I did. I meant to do import PDF. So if you use the import PDF facility, it will attempt to convert a PDF, but it's generally not going to work well with scans. But just for grins, since it is something I do have access to, I do kind of want to see. Oops, that's not the folder I want to get it out of. I have this scan, and I do want to see what it does, just so y'all can see also. My guess is it's just going to fail. Um, ooh, and the page looks like it just sort of locked up, so that's more than a fail. All right, well, I don't know what's going on with that page. I'm not going to worry about it, but I do want to show you the file because we are going to be looking at the file, right? So if I come to where the file is over here, I'm going to start typing it in. But before I actually start typing it in, I am going to try one other thing. So this is the piece. It's a some Renaissance music because it's a Renaissance ensemble. Um, and so it's a nice follow up to talking about some Renaissance counterpoint last time. Um, oh, there now it's cued. I'm not expecting this to be successful, but if it happens to be, we'll see. All right, so there's this, but there's also on MuseScore.com. Now, where did I put that? Someone has already entered this into MuseScore, so I could elect to just cheat and use theirs. And cheating, whatever. That's I'm getting paid by the hour to do this. So if I if I manage to save everyone some time and effort, then I think everyone's going to be perfectly happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and save this version and just load it into MuseScore. So this is a version I found on MuseScore.com, and it looks like it was created in a quite old version. I'll go ahead and reset. In fact, I'm just going to do Control A and Control R to just reset everything. So someone has entered the music, and now I get to sort of make a quick comparison. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to split my screen a bit here. What's the way to do it? I think I'm going to do this way and then that way. And if I do this vertically, I think is how we'll get the most bang for our buck here. So if that's not one of my favorite Windows features. It snapped the window full screen again once I got somewhere close to the top. I know there's some way to do fancier things. All right, so I'm going to be going for the second part, which is called the alto part in the printed music. The person who entered it here called it a tenor part, which is fine because it probably really would be sung by a tenor historically. And so I want to make a quick check, first of all, to see if everything looks right. So this is all right, so I believe this is Italian because it comes from, according to the sheet music here, it says it comes from, I chopped it off there, but it comes from something. Oh, no, it doesn't come from that. Some of the things came from a collection of Italian songs. But a lot of the music that they do in this is actually ancient Spanish, and it looks more than a little like Italian to the point that I can't necessarily tell the difference just to look at it. But I mean, I can totally believe that this is Italian, right? This sure looks Italian-like. Anyone wanna? If anyone who knows Italian or knows medieval Spanish could tell me which this looks more like, you would know. You could tell me. But so I'm kind of comparing what I see here. So one of the things I'm curious about is whether accents and so forth were entered correctly in the lyrics. So it looks like, because of course most languages other than English are going to involve some accents, but actually I'm not seeing a lot of accents on this. I'm not seeing any accents. I'm probably missing some. So anyhow, this appears to be in order here. So I might, rather than enter the notes, just use this as my starting point, and then just go in and talk about some of the particular things that I could do. So like one of the things that I want to see is I'm going to go full screen on this again, and I'll make it a little smaller. Oh yeah, it reminds me I need to get my little keystroke registerer. Which, by the way, is the one thing I'm still working on getting that working on my Chromebook. Remember last week I broadcast with my Chromebook. I think I worked out the sound issues, but I eventually found a keyboard logger that'll, so you can see what I'm typing. But I need to customize it some, and I haven't figured that out yet. But I'm back on my Windows machine right now. In part because there was also a possibility I was going to want to look at a finale version of this, but it turns out that I don't really need to see that because I found the MuseScore version. All right, so there we go. So if I look at this, it's all written out. There's no repeats or anything apparently. Oh, good, and it's got some extra lyrics at the. Oh my gosh, this is German. Wow. Okay. Um, so I in the original that I was given, yeah, there's also there is a repeated section. Oh, but it's not multiple verses, so maybe they actually had that too. I was sort of looking. No, it doesn't look like they have a repeated section. They just wrote it out twice. So it's gonna be important to me to make it match the version that I was given, so that when they talk about measure numbers, Elizabeth's on literally the same page as everyone else. So I will be using this, but I'm probably going to create my own version. So let me just go ahead and create a new score. I'm going to create it. Miakata. Orlando di Lasso. Good enough. And we'll just use the treble clef template and call that good. I'm lazy. I never customize the key signature or time signature when I'm creating the score. In part because the wizard is going to remember that, and then it's going to do it the next score, and I don't want to be bothered by that. So the actual score here is in the key of F. Well, it's in the key of 1 flat, but when I look at the first chord, it really is an F chord. So yeah, because it could have been D minor, could have been A Dorian. I mean it could have been not A Dorian, G Dorian. There we go. But anyhow, it does appear to be an F, and they use a common time here. But if I just leave it as 4/4, it's fine also. So I'll go ahead and make it B flat. I mean, make it F, the 1 flat, B flat. And what I could do is I could just copy in the notes and lyrics for the alto part, because that's really all I want. So if I come back to this version here, I'm just going to copy, I'm going to do this in sections, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever. I'm just going to go until it looks like a good stopping point. That looks like a good stopping point because I see a 2 like the second verse. So I'm just going to paste that in. All right, so I didn't have to type the lyrics. That saved me some time, right? But of course, if my goal here is to tell you about that second verse may or may not start here. If my goal is to tell you about like entering lyrics and things, you should watch me enter some lyrics. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to delete some lyrics here. I'm just selecting them and pressing delete, and I'm going to enter myself. So when I click the note, Control L and 1, and I'm putting the verse number in as part of the lyric. MuseScore kind of tries to understand that and line things up appropriately. Ma hyphen to na mi hyphen there you go. So it probably looks just like it did before. Maybe they had a space. Let's undo that and see. Oh, it looks pretty much the same. All right, so there's my version. That's all fine. You just type in your lyrics that way. I should mention that if you are fortunate enough to have your lyrics already typed up in another document, so in fact I'm going to do that and show you how that works. I'm going to go to Notepad, and I'm going to type ma to na mi ka ra. Select that, and now I'm going to come and just enter some more notes here. Okay, and now watch what happens. I'm going to press Control V. So I selected here and Control C to copy. I go back to MuseScore, Control V. Oh no, I have to be in lyrics mode, sorry. So I type Control L, but now Control V. Ma to na mi ka ra. So if you're fortunate enough to have your lyrics already typed up with hyphens and underscores to show melismas, you can actually paste it directly into MuseScore. It'll just paste it one syllable at a time, move on to the next note. It's a pretty clever facility, but it's only useful if you happen to have that. So hello everyone. I was wrapped up in what I'm doing and missed some hellos, but hello. So that is definitely something to know, because that's a feature that Finale has that for a long time we didn't have, and it got added with maybe not a lot of fanfare to it. Not recently, the feature's been there for years, but I think a lot of people don't know about it, and it is a bit of a pain in the butt, because if you mess up, if you forget a hyphen somewhere, well then it's going to like if I did this and I forgot to put my hyphen on Mia, which I could totally imagine that happening. Let me undo my changes here. All right, so Control L, na Mia, Kara, and now everything is off by 1. So that's not ideal. Now, I should also mention that if that happens and you've gotten the whole piece and you had a whole bunch of more music and you just realized everything was off by 1, not to worry. Check this out. I can select from here to the end of the score. So I'll go Shift, Control End, or Control End to go to the end of the score. And then I'm going to right click a lyric and say Select all similar elements in range selection. So that selects all the lyrics from this point to the end of the score. In this case, there's only 2 of them, but you get my idea. This could be pages and pages of lyrics. Then I can go Control X to cut, and then click here, Control V to paste, and it will shift everything. So I can fix my Mia. Me hyphen and shift everything over. So even if you don't get it perfect your first try, all is not lost. Let's put it that way. So that's a very useful feature to know about when using that paste facility for lyrics. Now, in my case, I don't have the lyrics all typed up already. In fact, while I'm talking about that subject, I want to mention that I actually want the lyrics in a separate file. Like I'm gonna use a feature in MuseScore here under Tools, Copy Lyrics to Clipboard. I think when you do that, it just grabs them all. Maybe I'm gonna Control A first just to be sure, but I'll say Copy Lyrics to Clipboard. And now I can come over here to Notepad or Word or whatever you want and paste, and all your lyrics are there. Now, it's not pasted in the same format that you would need to be able to paste it back in a MuseScore, right? The hyphens and stuff are gone. But it's in a format that's actually useful for, reading music. Or not reading music, but reading the lyrics. So I guess it doesn't put in line breaks. Why should it? It doesn't know doesn't have any idea where they go. I figure I will just look for punctuation and capitalization. That's just my little experiment there. So now I've got the lyrics just as a text. Why do I want this? Well, first of all, a lot of songs you might have the lyrics to the music underneath the notes, but then have additional verses at the end. There are no additional verses on this, well, the German version, but I actually want to give Elizabeth a file with just the lyrics, because realistically, MuseScore is great. Well, it's great. That's why we're talking about it. It's great for a lot of purposes. And when Elizabeth is learning a song, she can use MuseScore. For those of you who aren't aware, yes, this is a blind student I have, and we have MuseScore working pretty well with a screen reader. So it'll read to you every single note, read you the lyrics, and read everything that's going on here. Read the dynamic markings. It'll just read everything out loud. So she's able to learn the song from this, as well as just play back and learn it by ear, but she can get the details using the screen reader. And that's great for learning the song, but I went to the performance when this Renaissance Ensemble was performing, and everyone else was reading the music on the performance, and she had it all memorized. That's a lot to ask, to have all of this foreign language music including some of it, like as I said, was Renaissance era Spanish that's like really obscure. It's a lot to ask someone to have a whole concert's worth of music memorized that they just worked up in a few weeks. And so for everyone else, they can be reading it off there. For Elizabeth, at least we could print the Braille for the lyrics. She doesn't read Braille music, and a lot of people don't. A lot of blind musicians don't read Braille music. It's its own special thing. But just to have the lyrics printed in Braille so she can be reading in the concert, that's something I want to do. So I'm happy that we have that feature in MuseScore that after I've entered all the lyrics into the song, you can then just copy them to the clipboard. All right. Oh, okay. Just checking chat. All right. So so far I haven't seen any melismas, right? I mean, by melismas I mean a note where you go Matona mia cara, or that's just the thing where you have a whole bunch of notes on one syllable. Gloria. That's sort of the classic example of a melisma. A lot of Renaissance music would be just absolutely full of melismas, but this is a stylistic thing, and this particular piece is what's called a madrigal. And madrigals, that's one of their, I don't know if it's a defining element, but certainly a common element, that they're more song based, where it really is just one syllable per song. This other style where you take one word and stretch it out over many, many, many notes, that goes more with what are called motets and other styles. So I do want to make sure that we talk about entering a melisma. So I'm going to, again, delete some of those lyrics. I'm just undoing because I like to undo. So if I want to say ka dash ra, then I'm going to use the underscore, right, to extend that over the other notes. I guess that's not much of a melisma, right? But if I change some pitches, there, now it's a melisma. Ooh, I guess I turned my sound off, right? There we go. All right, so now I have a melisma. Kara. So that's what I wrote. It's, yeah, you just enter underscores, as many of them as you need, one per note, for how long you want that to go. So if I compare this against, I'm looking for things that maybe the person who entered this got wrong. Wrong in the sense of not doing things the officially correct way, or not doing things at least the way I would like to see them done. Like, for instance, there's no punctuation at the end of this sentence, but then there's the start here. So that's something that feels like maybe there should be, unless that's not the end of a sentence. Matona is not a proper noun. I think that's just starting a sentence. But anyhow, let me see how it's written in the original. Canzone. Oh, they have a comma on it. So I don't have to stress about those issues a whole lot, but I'm just looking for places where maybe I want to edit something. And so, yeah, I can just edit that. I just double click this and move the cursor to the end and type my comma, and that's all well and good. So I could, go over this with a fine-tooth comb and, make sure all of the same mi volere canzone. Whoa. Canzone. Oh, okay. Then it goes down to here. But what happened to cantar? This isn't lining up, is it? Is that measure 12? All right, so now I'm confusing myself. So I need to back up a second. Oh, that's this. So that's that canzone right there. So there is an experimental feature that was under development that would display a PDF within MuseScore and then lay out your score to match it. In other words, it would figure out where the bar line should go and insert line breaks so that you could be seeing your score with kind of the same physical layout, how many measures per line, to kind of facilitate copying PDFs. I said it was an experimental feature and it was never really completed. It's not there in the program. I can see now how that would be useful. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a line break so I don't confuse myself anymore. So that's that, and then coming back here, now my second line, matona mia cara, mi fole re, canzone, comma. I don't have to correct these things, but again, that should let you get to see, how I can edit these things. And then and then that's another line. Cantar, hopefully I see in the next line. Cantar sotto finestra. Cantar sotto finestra. I'm just sort of pronouncing this the way I imagine maybe it is. So I can see that they've got the hyphenization. Hyphenization? That sounds weird to say it out loud. A little different. This is lance and this is lance. I don't know the rules for whatever language this actually is, but I'm inclined to want to copy the what I see in the printed music, so I'm just going to go ahead and fix that. So yeah, I could go through this. Oh, lance. Now what the heck? This is off, right? Now what? Now what am I doing? Am I confusing myself again? No. So finestra. Lance. This bone belongs on the E. Comb. This is all off. Oh, look at that. So they have this written differently. Check that out. So, I need to correct this. That was a dotted half note. And then a repeated G. So, and now I get to use that thing I mentioned. I could just select these two lyrics, cut, paste them there. This buon, oh, I should have selected that also. Paste there. And the say should really be a Melesma, at least according to how this one was, right? So, compagnon, period, don, and they've got commas, but I think there's gonna be enough of these don, so I'm gonna drive myself batty if I try to add commas to all of them, so I choose not to. That first Melissa was painful. Oh, you mean the one that I sang? Yeah, well, that was just for example's sake. All right, so those are, that's the basics of entering lyrics. There's really nothing much more to it than that for entering the lyrics. But I mentioned in the description of this cafe, if you happen to read the description, that there's other things like considerations of spacing and other issues like dynamics. So normally in music, dynamics go below the notes, but not for vocal music because then it conflicts with the lyrics, right? So I can press X and just flip that dynamic up there. But because I know I'm going to want that for all dynamics, I think I'm just going to change the style setting. So, I can do that right from here. I can flip that one up and then come over here to the inspector, and I need to expand it a little bit, and hit the Set as Style button. Boom. Now, all the dynamics will be entered above the staff. Now, this is, I feel, too far above the staff. And that was the default setting, so I'm not sure. I'm going to go with about here and then set that as the style default. So now as I enter more dynamics, let's enter some more dynamics so you can see that they will inherit that setting. Yeah. So the style setting is score wide. So I could get away with that because this score is only going to be this alto part. I'm not going to enter the piano accompaniment or the other vocal parts. If I was entering piano accompaniment, then I'd have to second guess whether I really want to make the style setting to be above the staff, because then it's going to make the piano dynamics be above the staff, and I don't want that. Um, but yeah, I'm since this is all there is, I'm okay with that. So yeah, it's only going to be this alto part, so I don't need to worry about the style not being appropriate for other staves. So dynamics are above, and I'll need to do the same for hairpins, right? So let me enter myself a hairpin. By default, it's below. I need to move it above, and then I can move it down and set that as the style setting. Oops, I accidentally changed the thickness. Didn't mean to. And then where was that? I'm looking for the placement. Where's placement? Oh, there's placement. Boom. So, one of the changes that we are looking at doing in the future, I've mentioned that one of the things that happened in 3.4 is some improvements in the inspector here, in terms of just there were certain things that, like time signatures, for instance, used to have to right click a time signature to get to time signature properties, where you can set all the beaming rules. And beaming is something else I want to talk about. Now you can get to the properties right here from the inspector. So we've got a lot more improvements, because you can see, like, boy, this is the world's ugliest inspector right here. The number of settings that you have to deal with for hairpins is just kind of enormous, and it can be hard to find things. So we are definitely looking at making some kind of big changes to the inspector, and hopefully you'll be hearing more about that in future sessions of the cafe. Okay, so I've got that style setting made. And in fact, let me save this thing. I haven't saved this yet, but it's already becoming useful. So I need to go to my right folder. Actually, it's my Elizabeth Romero folder right here. Yeah, that's fine, because the other version has some funny name. All right, so that's something. Then I mentioned that beaming is something else. So in vocal music, especially in older editions, it was traditional to not beam eighth notes together unless there's a melisma. So here, these eighth notes, if I were to obey that convention, should not be beamed. And if you look at don don din di 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 di, that is exactly the case. They have them not beamed here. So if I want them not beamed in mine, I can do that individually. I can select those notes, go to Beam Properties, and then double click the, single click, because I'm on MuseScore 3.4 now. Single click. Ha. That's a change that I mentioned last time, that now the palette applies with a single click. So I select my range of notes and then single click that eighth note, and boom, they're unbeamed. And I had also mentioned, since I'm probably going to want most of my eighth notes to be that way, because realistically, if you think about it, most eighth notes in this music are going to be melismas. Are not, well, no, most are going to be melismas, but those sure as heck weren't. So scratch what I just said. But I can go to time signature properties by right clicking it or using the new button in the inspector, and I can go and just click these eighth notes to break their beams. Do I have to double click them? No. Hello. I guess I'm just missing. So I'm breaking all the beams here as a time signature property. And by doing that, now eighth notes will show up unbeamed by default, even if I enter more eighth notes. Oops. Right, they come off unbeamed by default. So that will let me automatically have my eighth notes not be beamed. Now, realistically, I don't know if that's what I want because I'm going to bet that maybe there are some melismas in here, and then I'll have to go fix those, and I don't want to have to fix those. In fact, I'm a big undo guy, right? I'm just going to undo until it's back. Okay, undo, it's back. There is a plugin. Now, apparently, I don't have that plugin installed here, but because, I am going to want it anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and install the plugin. So I'm going to go to musescore.org, download, oops, I didn't mean to click that, plugins. And under here, there is what's called the vocal beam, traditional vocal beaming. Here it is. So if I click on this, I get it's a plugin that will analyze the lyrics and do things for me. So download plugin for MuseScore 3. Sounds good. So I need to download it into my plugins folder. So what I'm going to do is I go to MuseScore 3. That's actually not the right folder. I have to. I'm doing some funny things with Google Drive so that I can share scores between this and my Chromebook easily, but the plugins need to be installed separately. So bear with me a second. I have to go to Documents, MuseScore 3, plugins. There we go. All right. Oh, maybe I did have it already. Well, maybe it's a new version. All right. So now that it's there, I unzip it. I have to, is it? Let me go back to that window. If I click this, it will let me extract. So I'll extract all. And now, from within MuseScore, I can go to Plugins, Plugin Manager, and select it. Traditional vocal beaming. While I'm at it, I'm going to get some of these other ones. I guess I had to at some point reset things so I don't have everything that I want, because I installed a whole lot of plugins because I like some of these. I don't dock articulate, config. Yeah, these are all good ones. Check. These are some good ones that I want to have. All right. Yeah, that was overkill, but anyhow, that's how you choose which of the of all the plugins you've downloaded, which ones actually get installed. Because maybe you install more than, I don't know what I just did, but I'm going to undo it. Okay. So what I can do now is select my score, and I'm going to say plugins, traditional vocal beaming, and notice it did that for me. Whereas if I have a melisma here, so now this is a melisma. If I select this and run traditional vocal beaming, you see it broke the beams there, but it kept the beam here for the melisma. So that's what that plugin does. It's smart about such things. So that's one of the things you would probably want to know about. I mentioned also spacing as a thing. Like right now, this is awfully close to that. There are settings that can control like how close together we allow things to get. However, I didn't insert any line breaks there, and I know that in the original that line wasn't that long, right? They had and I think I want to preserve the same. Well, it actually doesn't matter because Elizabeth isn't going to be aware of the line, which line things are. As long as the measure numbers line up, I'm good actually. But still, what measure is that? Where am I talking about? This is, oh, I can look down at the status line. It's measure 15. So if I come here and find myself, oh, there's no measure numbers. You got to be kidding me. No measure numbers. Ah. Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah. All right. So there's really only two more measures. It's the E, F, F, and that's the end of that line. So I think once I do that, go back and look at this. E, F, F, that's the end of my line. So now suddenly there's enough space and everything's fine. But let's say I didn't do that. If I want to open up more space here, there's a number of settings for lyrics that you should know about. So if you go to Format, Style, Lyrics, you'll see all these different settings. One for the minimum bottom margin. That controls how much space would be below the lyrics here. Now, right now, there's a lot of space, but that's because the page isn't full. As the page starts to fill up, that page will get compressed. But this says always keep at least 2 staff spaces. SP is space, staff space. 2, and that's the basic unit of measure in MuseScore, or pretty much any notation program. So this says to always allocate 2 spaces worth of space below the lyric, before, below that, before the next staff. But there's all these other settings here that control the length of the melismas and how much space we put around the melisma and so forth. So these settings will, and then also minimum distance between lyrics. Right now it's set to 0. It'll always, it won't put them any closer than notes will be, but no additional space. But as I increase this space, you can kind of see it's adding more space between things, right? You see it spacing things out. Now there's a little more space there, a little more space there, etc. If I change the melisma pad, I think the melisma pad is only the space before the melisma. See that? It's opening up that space. But so anyhow, there's all these different settings in here. In general, I don't mess with them unless I have a problem. We went to some trouble to kind of come up with good defaults, based on, looking at a lot of existing scores and scores that people had access to that we, just tried to do good things with. And so for a lot of cases, you don't need to mess with these settings, but they are available. Like I will say, this setting of 2 spaces below the lyric is sometimes too much. And maybe if you're really trying to cram more onto a page, that reducing that one can help, for what it's worth. So that's something about spacing. And also just things like, well, if you're really worried about this being too crowded, this melisma line is running into that. I think that's actually a bug. I think that shouldn't be running into it at all. But I can just use the curly brace. This is the add stretch command, and it just stretches out that measure. So I stretch it out as much as I want until I'm happy with it. Of course, I was happier with it before, so I go to stretch, reset, and I'm fine. But yeah, maybe 1 notch of more stretch would have made me happier. But again, in real life, I'm going to have a line break here, and now suddenly I'm perfectly happy. So again, in the real life situations, you normally don't need to mess with these things. It's when you get to these situations where you're really trying to cram things together, where you might want to adjust some things to make sure they don't get too crammed. All right. So that's me going through some of the things that are in here. I'm trying to think if there's other stuff that seems relevant, but actually let me go full screen with this and see if one thing that I mentioned doesn't come up in this piece, surprisingly enough, were accented characters. Accented characters are a thing, and so is what's a thing where you put 2 syllables on one word. So you can do both of those from the same thing. So let's say you want to put 2 syllables on one word. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean not one word, on one note. Like me, if that was 2 words, let's say. So I could give myself a note. All right, I got a note. I type me, and then I want, me, like 2 words on one note. Me, that's a thing sometimes, especially in other languages. There's a special character, and maybe the me is supposed to have an accent on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that I, and I'm going to press F2. And that shows the special characters dialog. And now I get all my accented characters. and if you have a keyboard that can do that, like if you have an actual Italian keyboard, it probably has the accents. Certainly, the French keyboard has accented characters on it, and other keyboards have a way of doing it where you like press some special combination of things to make it do it. Oops, I accidentally entered two of them. Okay, so me with an accent. But if I don't really want that space in there, if I really want to show that it's two um, separate words that are being connected, these two symbols do that. So when you do that, it actually, as you can see here, enters them like below the thing. Some people would I think I would personally rather see a space. So I'm going to hit Control Space to add a space before and after it, so that this little curved sign is below a space rather than having the two letters go right up against each other. But in any case, you have either option. So I hit Control Space, then the Elysian, I think is what it. No, that's not what it's called. It's got a name. Let's see what its name is if I hover over it. Oh, it just shows the picture of the thing. It does. Anyone know what that thing is called? It's Sinelf. It's got some special fancy name. So anyhow, this is my process. So I'm going to go and finish this piece. I got like actually a whole stack of pieces to do. So I'm going to be entering some more music, seeing what I can grab off of MuseScore.com or elsewhere to save myself some trouble entering the music. But then at the end of that, I'll be able to give Elizabeth some MuseScore files, so that just because it's fun, I'm going to turn on NVDA. And hello.
No select.
Oh, okay. It was taking
bar
a while.
Line normal bar. Rest measure beat 1.
Where is it? I don't know where anything is right now.
No
let me go back to the top. If I just
Matna
select a note.
No selection. Note C4 half measure 1 beat 1 staff 1. Piano. Lyrics 1. Ma dynamic F.
So
note C4 half
lyrics
measure
1 dot ma is what it said. Piano. And then also when I hit Alt right,
lyrics 1 ma beat 1.
It'll just read the lyric. So anyhow, that's going to be the bottom line here. It's also possible to then export this score to Music XML, and then there are programs that can then try to convert that into Braille, as Music Braille, for people who understand that. But anyhow, that is what I'm actually doing here. So I'm getting this music into MuseScore for the particular purpose of allowing Elizabeth to read it, because the paper copy doesn't do her any good. But yeah, regardless of what your purpose is, that's the process is basically the same. But sometimes some of the things you care about might differ depending on purpose. Like here, it's going to be really important to me to match measure numbers, because at rehearsal they're going to say, all right, let's start at measure 73, and she's going to want to make sure that she can get to measure 73. Control F.
Search box type to search.
73. There is no
73.
So
toolbar.
There is no measure 73, of course, but if I say measure 12.
2. Inspector window. Visible check. No selection. L.
So anyhow, now it's
no selection. Lyrics on. Measure lyrics on.
That's
measure 12 beat 1
right?
staff 1.
So anyhow, I'll turn off
exit NVD OK button.
So I'm going to get back to doing that and seeing what else I need to be doing. So next week is when I leave to go to the FOSDEM conference, the Free Open Source Developer European Meeting is what it stands for, in Brussels. And so last year I had actually arrived in Brussels in time that I was able to broadcast from Brussels. I don't remember where I did that, but I'm pretty sure I remember doing it. This time I'm going to be at the airport. So chances are, well, you never know. I'll see if I can like do something, but I'll from the airport. But very possibly I'll be taking next week off, and then maybe when I come back, I'll have some news to share. Not that we're, the conference isn't necessarily newsworthy. It's like not like we announce new products or anything like that. But I am giving a presentation on accessibility, which is why you hear me talk about this so much. Well, it's one of many reasons you hear me talk about it so much. But I've actually had some good success getting more things working, and we'll be talking about them along with Peter Jonas, another one of the developers, at the conference in Brussels next weekend. So, if there's no further questions, and I see good mornings and comments, but no actual questions, so I'm going to assume that everyone either was like, yep, I understood what you're doing, or I already knew that, and either way, uh, I there's no questions for me to answer. I'm going to just sign off and see you either next week or the week after. So I hope you all have a great week, and MuseScore 3.4. Let me see if there's any announcement. So, like if it just got released while we were doing this. Update translations. Nope, looks like not. Translation issue. Okay, so anyhow, I think it is pretty imminent though. So I will take my leave and see you all next time. Bye.